First Do No Harm is a really great episode of Frasier. This is the 5th episode of the 6th season. It's directed by Sheldon Epps. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it starts off at Cafe Nervosa. We spend quite a lot of time in the cafe in this one. And Frasier meets a fan who says he misses the show. Ross is there, but she's asleep, and then she has food stains on her, but she has a job interview. So she's a little bit all over the place. And then Martin comes in, and it turns out he wants to set Frasier up with Duke's daughter, Marie. Frasier's not interested in this. He knew Marie as a child. He doesn't think he'd like her very much, at least as a romantic partner. And then she walks in, and she's played by Teri Hatcher. And Frasier's suddenly very interested. And we then cut to them having dinner in the apartment. Frasier has made his crane brulee, and everything is going well. And Marie is straightening everything. She has OCD. Everything has to be in a straight line, including Frasier's things. And Frasier, to his credit, is very cool and calm and very smooth, and he doesn't make a big deal out of it. And he offers to take her out on the balcony, and she's afraid of heights. So it's clear that Marie has some mental health issues, and this comes up a lot in the episode. And Martin comes home briefly, and then Frasier and Marie kiss, and it's very clear that this relationship is going to go beyond just one date. And then we cut to them in Cafe Nervosa, and I had a thought. I've seen this episode before. I couldn't remember anything about it. And as soon as I heard Marie talking about her dreams, my thought was, it must be really awkward to be Frasier. Because how do you know if somebody's interested in you as a person or as a psychiatrist? Now, personally, I wouldn't want to just start divulging my thoughts to a psychiatrist just because they're a psychiatrist. I've had plenty of therapy. I'm not really a fan of talking about my thoughts and feelings, which is a bit awkward. But I know a lot of people would find great value in that. As we see with Marie, she's sharing her dream, wanting Frasier's professional input. And as soon as I heard that, my thought was, is she only interested in him because he's a psychiatrist? And that's kind of part of the main theme of the episode. She leaves, Niles comes in, and then Niles has the exact same thought that I did. And she asked, why is she interested in you? Is it because she's getting free therapy? Now, I didn't actually think of the free therapy aspect. I thought of it more as just picking his brain for thoughts, which I guess is kind of free therapy. I didn't think she was going as far as getting genuine helpful advice. But certainly Niles planted that seed in Frasier's mind. We're then back at the apartment, and Martin is trying to set Daphne up with somebody across the other building who's looking at her with binoculars. Needless to say, she's not interested. And then Marie and Frasier come back in, and we learn that they'd been out together, and the conversation had turned to talking about her mother, and then talking about her dream again. And she begins to massage him, and the conversation continues like this. And it's very clear from Frasier's reaction that he's thinking maybe she is only interested in because he's a psychiatrist. And he tells her he's not in the mood to talk about these things tonight, and she pulls away from him instantly. And she ends up saying she has to leave. Frasier panics and starts to talk about her dream. And as soon as he does that, she decides to stay. And I don't think it needs to be said that she's definitely interested in him because he's a psychiatrist. But Niles says something interesting about that, and we'll come back to Niles in a moment. We are then down at Cafe Nervosa, and Alice has said her first word. She's not in Cafe Nervosa, but Roz explains that she said her first word. And it's just, the passage of time is so terrifying, because in the reboot, in the most recent Frasier series, we get to meet Alice, and she's obviously a fully grown adult. So to then think of her saying her first word, it just doesn't seem like this was that long ago, but obviously it was, and that's kind of a terrifying thought. Rose leaves, Niles and Martin then come in, and Frasier explains that he broke up with Marie. And Niles explains to Frasier that that's not what he wanted him to do. He wasn't suggesting he did that. As he explains to Frasier, maybe Marie is interested in him because he's a psychiatrist, but over time, she will find other things about him that she likes. And I'm in two minds about this. On the one hand, I think that's a fair comment. Maybe she's initially attracted to him for one reason, and then we'll learn other things about him. That's often how a relationship goes. You're drawn to somebody for one reason, and then as you find out more about them, you like more about them, and that's how a relationship develops. So it's a valid comment, but at the same time, would you want to start a relationship or continue a relationship with somebody knowing that they were first and foremost only interested in free therapy? So I'm kind of not completely thinking that Frasier did the wrong thing. I think if that was something he was concerned about, it's very valid for him to break it off. But I can also see Niles' point that just because that's the initial attraction, it doesn't mean there won't be other things about him that she'll like. And we're back at the apartment again, and Frasier and Marie come in. There's a lot of coming and going in this episode. They've clearly had a good time, and Niles asks, when Frasier is alone with him in the kitchen, Niles asks if all they talk about is Marie's problems, because that seems to be the only dialogue that Frasier and Marie have. And Niles suggests that maybe Frasier is only interested in Marie to, quote-unquote, exercise his psychiatric muscles. And Frasier dismisses this. And then he goes through to the bedroom with with a really random moment of Eddie latching onto his leg midway to the bedroom. Very peculiar, but a really adorable way to bring Eddie into it. And while Marie is trying to seduce him, I guess he's already seduced, so I guess have sex with him, then Frasier is instantly thinking about the dream that she had in these different scenarios, and he starts to come to realizations of what it could mean, and his mind is very clearly on that and not on the action in the moment. And he realizes that Niles was probably right, because he's not working now, he's not getting to be a psychiatrist, and this was an opportunity to do that, and he finally had to admit that it was the case. And Marie was very upset at him because, well, I don't know why, because I think Frasier did all of the right things. He told her in the moment that he's going to have to break up with her, this isn't going to work, and she got angry and stormed out. But he was being open and honest. He was telling her the truth. He wasn't trying to hide it. And also, she is very clearly using him, at least for now, for free therapy. So she's not really in a position to be annoyed. Maybe it was a knee-jerk reaction, and maybe once she thought about it, she'd realised that really neither of them were to blame here. It's just one was attracted for therapy, the other person was attracted to give the therapy. So they're kind of both as bad as each other, but also both of them had a valid interest in the relationship, but maybe not for the most morally sound reasons. So maybe they're both wrong, maybe they're both okay, I don't know. But either way, I don't think she had a right to be that annoyed at Frasier. There was one bit in that scene that I absolutely loved, though. He's breaking up with her, and she says, "Am I crazy, or are you breaking up with me again?" To which Frasier responds, "Well, they're not completely unrelated." I loved it. I genuinely laughed out loud quite a lot at that one. And then we end with Martin trying to set Roz up with the person with binoculars in the other building. So definitely a really solid episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it worked really well. Personal highlights. Creme brulee. I will now forever think of creme brulee. I can't even say that. Creme brulee as creme brulee. And Teri Hatcher was brilliant as Marie. I can't work out if I like Marie or not. I feel like I relate to Marie a little bit too much with some of her behaviours, but in general, very likeable character. The idea of Alice saying her first word, I love it. It's great that she's growing up and getting a little personality, and the stories from Roz are really adorable, but also the passage of time is quite disturbing. And Eddie latching onto Frasier, and then of course the line, well, they're not completely unrelated. Very thought-provoking episode. It definitely made me think about what it would be like to be Frasier, and to never really knowing if somebody's dating you just because they want free therapy. I imagine over time, as it does with Marie, that would become quite obvious if all they're ever interested in talking about is themselves and their problems and their dreams. So I imagine it, hopefully, would be known quite quickly if there was a person who was not making it known until they were deep in a relationship and in love with each other, and then using him for free therapy, then honestly I feel like that person would deserve the therapy by that point. Definitely an interesting episode. First, Do No Harm is pretty great. Definitely an episode that I really thoroughly enjoyed.